ICLEI South Asia presents Simply Sustainable, where ideas are simply told. Understanding Net Zero Emissions with Nikhil Kolsepatil. What is net zero emissions?
This concept addresses emissions of greenhouse gases or GHGs, which are the main driver of global warming. GHGs are released from energy use in buildings and infrastructure, from fuel use in vehicles, and from management and disposal of solid waste and wastewater. Net zero emissions simply means reducing these GHG emissions as close to zero as possible. To simplify this, let us imagine a weighing balance scale, and in this case a rather imbalanced one. So on one side we have GHGs released into the atmosphere, and the first priority is how low down can we pull this arm of the scale by cutting down fossil fuel use, reducing material consumption and waste going to landfill, for instance. On the other side, we have methods that can additionally help remove or offset any remaining GHGs in a responsible manner, such as forests and wetlands that serve as carbon sinks. Achieving net zero emissions means balancing this scale.
Why does net zero emissions matter?
The scale and severity of the climate emergency is very clear. Across regions, countries, and cities, we are experiencing climate-driven heat waves, floods, unpredictable monsoons, droughts, and storms. More so, the intensity and the number of incidences keep on increasing, and so do the impacts on millions of people, on nature, and to vital infrastructure. This leads to economic losses and it affects lives. Also, the climate impacts are not evenly distributed, with the more vulnerable sections of community being more affected. By 2030, as much as 90% of people are estimated to be at risk of intense heat, and 1 in 5 at risk of severe flooding in South Asia. South Asia can potentially lose up to 10 to 18% of its annual GDP by 2050 due to various climatic events. Therefore, it is important that we have climate-oriented and net zero emission actions at the core of our planning and infrastructure implementation. The Paris Agreement, collectively supported by over 190 nations, targets this same goal. It targets that we reach net zero emissions by 2050 in order to limit global temperature rise to 1.5 degrees centigrade and keep the impacts of climate change more manageable. At COP30 in Belém, nations will report on their climate targets, raising ambition for the decade ahead. They will also put forth their third round of national commitments under the Paris Agreement.
How can cities move towards net zero?
Cities are hubs of population, economic activity, infrastructure, and therefore naturally of GHG emissions. With over 2/3 of the world's population expected to live in urban settings by 2050, climate action is required in cities in order to support global efforts. So cities can intervene in areas such as energy, buildings, transport, municipal infrastructure, waste, urban greenings in order to target GHG emission reductions. Specifically, they can implement actions such as constructing and upgrading buildings to be green and energy efficient, using high efficiency equipment in, say, infrastructure such as water pumping, having high levels of renewable energy use in buildings and transport. A few other actions, again in mobility, for example, can be promoting walking, cycling, public transit use, shifting to zero emission electric vehicles, improving waste management and circularity, and nature-based solutions such as protecting and expanding urban green spaces and wetlands. These strategic interventions that urban planning needs to fully integrate net zero principles and measures.
How is ICLEI South Asia supporting cities advance towards their climate and net zero ambitions?
ICLEI South Asia works as a technical partner, helping cities to develop practical action plans for net zero and climate resilience. We have developed 80 plus GHG emission inventories, which is the first step for cities to understand where their GHG emissions stand. In 35 cities across India, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Sri Lanka and Malaysia, We have worked closely with them to prepare city climate action plans that not only look at net zero emissions but also improved resilience to climate impacts. More so, the local municipal councils have approved these climate action plans, which means they are backed with the necessary commitment for their implementation. Moreover, we work with cities on activities to translate these plans into action. This includes testing and piloting climate solutions with city governments and communities in their local conditions, and then using the learnings to inform larger scale of implementation of these climate actions. Necessary governance mechanisms to drive implementation of the climate action plans, such as net zero or climate cells, are being operationalized with our support in cities of Gujarat and Tamil Nadu, and also a few other cities across the region as well. Moreover, we also help cities make space for dedicated climate related allocations in their municipal budgets, with Ahmedabad being a leading example of this, and also to design climate investment plans to support on ground implementation. I would say overall we work alongside cities in their day-to-day functioning to support them in making steady systematic changes, and changes which are also lasting, so that low emission climate sensitive choices become the default, not the exception.